Good morning once again, class. In the past two videos, we studied about the formation of soil, different kinds of soil, the four soils which we have in our syllabus: alluvial, black, red, and laterite. Now we come on the last topic of this chapter, that is soil erosion. Again, something which you have studied earlier in your previous classes. Now, what is soil erosion? Soil erosion is the removal of the top layer of the soil either by running water or by wind. And why does soil erosion happen? It happens because either the rain is very torrential or heavy, and heavy rainfall is very dangerous because once the water comes down in great amounts, the soil is unable to absorb it, and excess water flows away and it takes the soil along with it. Slow and steady rainfall is less dangerous because it gets seeped in and absorbed by the soil slowly and goes down and joins the groundwater. But if the rain is torrential, it is heavy and it happens for a short period of time, it causes a lot of damage. Next is nature of soil. If the soil is porous, it can absorb a lot of water and therefore does not get affected by heavy rainfall. But if the soil is non-porous, cannot absorb a lot of water, then it starts flowing with the water and therefore causes erosion. And of course, man is a big factor. We are the ones who are causing deforestation. We are the ones who are taking our animals for overgrazing over lands. Then we have unscientific methods of farming like shifting cultivation. Now, shifting cultivation is a method which is actually practiced, which was practiced by the nomads. It is also called as zooming, or it is also called as slash and burn. Now, this practice was done by the nomads in the earlier times or in the ancient times. What they used to do was they would go to a piece of land, cut down all the trees, burn the roots so that potassium could be added to the soil, and then cultivate that land for the next 2, 3, 4 years. Now, why were they cultivating that land for 2, 3, 4 years only? For the simple reason they did not have access to fertilizers or manure, and they would cultivate that land for a few years till the land was able to give them a good yield. Once that land became infertile, the soil became infertile, they would abandon that piece of land and choose another fresh patch of land, repeat the entire process of cutting down the trees, burning the roots, and then again cultivating it for the next few years. Now, what I mean to say is cutting and burning. That is where slash and burn is the method which comes into effect. Slash means to cut down the trees, burn means to burn the roots. And they would again cultivate that land for a few years. Once that land would stop giving them good yield, they would go along to the next piece of land. Now, this was one, they were cutting down the trees, that means deforestation was happening. Two, when they were shifting from one land mass or land piece to another land piece or a patch of land, they would leave behind the other land without any trees or without any vegetation over it. That means you were leaving the land bare for any kind of erosion by wind or by water. So it was a double impact. One, trees were being cut. Two, land was being left bare for any kind of erosion, which was very harmful. So this comes under the category of unscientific methods of farming. So human factors were there. Now, how can you protect all this from happening? Of course, the first one, which we have already studied many a times, is terrace farming, which was also known as step farming. Now, what does terrace farming or step farming mean is, when we go down to the mountain slopes, we see that the mountain has been cut into steps. And when these mountains are cut into steps, then you cultivate on those steps. Now, what happens is, when the steps are being cut and you cultivate, so this is how you cut down the steps. So when the water falls here, certain amount of water gets absorbed here and then goes further, gets absorbed here. Now this happens, two things happens. One, the speed of the water gets arrested because the steps are being made. And two, when the water is being absorbed, less water flows down and therefore less erosion happens. So this is called as your terrace farming, which is also called as step farming. Then the next method is, of course, afforestation, growing of any as many number of trees as possible. Construction of dams so that you can avoid floods, and when floods are avoided, automatically erosion is also avoided. Legal banning of shifting cultivation, which we already studied in the previous paragraph, that shifting cultivation should be legally banned. No one should be allowed to practice this kind of farming. So that is your legal banning of shifting cultivation. Then it is overgrazing. Now there has to be a check on overgrazing. Now what do I mean by overgrazing? Overgrazing is supposing you take a bunch of animals, a flock of sheep, to a land to graze. They eat the leaves of the plants there for a few days. Then when you are taking that flock of sheep every day to the same piece of land, once the leaves get finished, they start eating the stems. Once the stem gets finished, they start pulling out the roots. Now when they start pulling out the roots, that means your soil is being left without any cover, without any protection. So when the rain falls, when the wind blows, that soil will be carried away with the water or with the wind. So this is called as overgrazing. So you should have, or rather should I say, the people who have animals, who are cattle rearers, they should have a few patches of land in vision. They should keep changing the piece of land after a few days, so that earlier patch of land gets time to grow new leaves. The roots are not uprooted and the soil is not left bare for the wind and the water to take it away. Next is your strip cropping. Strip cropping is you're cultivating on a piece of land. You've left some gap between the two rows of your crop. Now when that gap has been left, in that gap grow smaller crops like mirchi, dhania, pudina, so that the roots hold the soil particles. They do not let the soil run away with water or carry away by the wind. Then next one is your planting of shelter belts. Planting of shelter belts is generally done in areas where rain is less but the wind blows with a high speed. So wherever you have cultivated your piece of land, around that cultivated field, grow as many trees as possible in a single or a double line, so that it can arrest the speed of the wind and the soil is not carried away by the blowing of wind. That is what planting of shelter belt means. Now with this we wrap up with the chapter. This is all in this chapter. I have uploaded 3 videos by now. Please go through all the 3 videos and find out if there is any difficulty. Get back to me and I'll send an audio clip to you so that you can understand it in a better manner. Bye bye for now.